All right. Good morning, guys. It is Bernard Nomberg. Obviously, we are back on our Tuesday at 10 a.m. for Nomberg Law Live. As we do each week, we have interesting conversations with people in their areas of expertise. And I'm so pleased. This may be the first for us. We've done almost 200 shows, a second generation guest. We have AJ Jackson out of the Los Angeles area. Good morning, AJ, and thank you for getting up so early for our show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm more than happy.
You are most welcome. I knew AJ's folks well before I knew her. Of course, Mitch Jackson and Lisa Wilson, a dynamic lawyer, husband wife duo. And we've just gotten to know each other the last 4 or 5 years through social media. And in pre pandemic, we got together for an annual conference, and hopefully we'll get back to that again. But over the last year or two, I've gotten to know AJ and her brother Garrett just a little bit. And I brought AJ on as a guest today because I want to talk about a couple of things. And don't worry, I've cleared this with her beforehand. That we're going to talk about being a second generation lawyer and making her own mark, her own path. And we're also going to talk about the mindset of the millennials on social media and dealing with being lawyers at this time, because there's really a very fine line between what you should post and what you shouldn't post and who's looking at it and all that good stuff. So I'm going to turn it over to you, AJ. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice and where you are and those kind of things.
Sure. So first off, thank you again for having me. It's great to be here. And I'm glad we're getting to know each other too. Wish I could have hung out at that very fun conference, heard some crazy lawyer stories. But I am going into my second year practicing. I graduated from USC Gould School of Law in 2019. And I've been at Shepherd Mullen Richter in Hampton, which is an international firm, and I am based out of the Century City office. So my practice group is business trial. We do all forms of commercial litigation, and the past year I've been really lucky to dabble in a lot of different areas, which was a big reason why I was drawn to Shepherd Mullen in the first place. So I've had the opportunity to do trade secrets law, entertainment law, a lot of constitutional law, and it's been really a really unique experience. It's been really great. So, my area of expertise after you're practicing, I'm lucky to say, is a couple different areas. I feel like I'm really finding my niche and finding my way. But it's been an interesting first year. That is for sure.
Oh, I know that it is. And here's where I'm going to sound like a really old dude. We didn't have a lot of the things to deal with that you have to deal with these days. And when I say you, your generation of young new lawyers, I know you're newly minted as of this fall. We passed the bar and took on this job. But we didn't have to deal with social media. We didn't have to deal with all of that noise that's out there. But what comes with that is there's so many things that come with that. It's a necessary evil that you really have to have these days, whether it's for learning your news or communicating with friends, family, colleagues, maybe even opposing counsel, whatever it is, it's there. And this is where I want to go with this part of the discussion. Obviously, you found out, you knew about your firm, you scouted them out, you went and interviewed, you landed the job, etc. But here's my question. How much, and I bet I know the answer, how much did they know about you going into that interview?
I've actually wondered that. It's not something that I have ever gone to my firm about and said, what did you know?
Mhm.
But I would imagine any large law firm or any size law firm, who you're bringing in and what they post online and how they present themselves is very significant. And I'm lucky to be at a firm where, in my experience, I've been very supported in building my brand, in expressing myself online, whether that be my personal take on what's important in this world right now, what's going on. And I'd imagine anywhere and everywhere, you have to understand that your information is accessible, and it's important to, not say anything online that you wouldn't stand by saying in person, to whether that be, a partner, a fellow associate. It's all out there. Like you said, I'm sure they saw more than enough, before hiring me and making that choice to hire me.
And those are the discussions. As you know, I'm a parent of two 20-something-year-old daughters, and while they were coming up through middle school and getting into social media, and then in high school, college, etc. You have to have those conversations, and just knowing the parents that who you have as parents, and how tuned in to social media. I know that your dad is, and I know your mom, she does all the heavy lifting around the firm. Let's not make a mistake about that. But
Of
anyway,
course, yeah.
I know that you and your brother have been counseled by your parents probably ad nauseum. You probably rolling your eyes, figuratively or literally. It's like, Mom, Dad, I got this. But it doesn't hurt to keep having that reminder. And here's why. How often do you see, do you learn of your friends who maybe in college didn't make a fraternity or sorority, or were not interviewed for a job, or lost a job because they made a dumb decision to post something? And even when you take it down, what happens? It's still there.
It's there. It's there forever. Yeah, I just think in our new age, it's a blessing and a curse. But at the end of the day, it's kind of that choice, whether it becomes a blessing or a curse, is entirely in your control as an individual. Like I said, my motto is, if I couldn't say it to the face of someone like a partner at a firm, then I don't say it. And, there are certain areas where I'm going to say how I feel, whether that be politics, whether that be social justice. I'm going to speak out on that, because if I went to a lunch with my employer, with someone at my job, I would say those things, and that's the right thing to do. There are certain things where I don't hesitate to post, because I know where my personal lines are drawn, and what I support and what I believe in. Now, when it comes to my personal life, there are certain things where I'm 26 years old, I am trying to keep a good work-life balance, but I understand that that balance needs to be play to social media in a way where anyone looking at my profile can say, okay, that's a professional, that's a young woman who's worked really hard to get to where she is. And that line is drawn, clearly, my private life, my professional life, and how I portray myself online.
It is. And that's the hard balance that you've been blessed with, having that training all your life about social media. And obviously you've developed a maturity in knowing, and a common sense in knowing, I really don't need to post that picture at 2 a.m. of something I've just done with my friends. That we don't need to share it with everybody. I'm not implying that you do that kind of stuff, but so many people just don't have that filter, and they put it out there, including many, many grown adults. And not to make this a political discussion, which we could, but look at the insurrection from early January and how many people took to social media. Some of them didn't even change their clothes out of their work clothes, or their badges were still on their, I mean, how?
Right, while openly breaking the law.
That's exactly
it's
right.
pretty astonishing. Yeah, I think everyone can learn from that. A, don't do that, and B, don't boast about it.
Yep.
But they go hand in hand. Again, that's a choice I wouldn't make in my personal life, and it's a choice I wouldn't post on social media.
That's exactly right. Now, when you were going through the orientation process with Shepherd Mullen, were you counseled or advised, or did you have to sign, say, an acknowledgement of the handbook, that you were trained or told, hey, we take social media very seriously, and what you put out there reflects upon not yourself and your family, but also your employer? Talk to us about that a little bit.
To be quite frank, I honestly don't recall. Like I said, I'm lucky to be at a firm that supports me building my brand. There's constant networking, constant opportunities for me to meet individuals from other firm. Right now it's, Zoom virtual, like women's, law empowerment type opportunities, which has been great. But generally speaking, I think maybe because the firm is so big, and this is my personal opinion, I have felt very much that I have been kind of empowered to do my own thing. I haven't, had anyone come up to me and say, hey, what was that? I just haven't had that experience. I felt very kind of free to build my own brand and, use my own judgment and my best judgment to portray myself online.
Let's talk about social media platforms. Let's talk about branding for a few minutes. You've got a job that you are learning. You've got a job that keeps you incredibly busy, and I'm very thankful you have a few minutes for us today. But two questions. from a personal standpoint, I want you to answer, and then from a professional standpoint, what are your favorite social media platforms and why?
So professionally, I would say LinkedIn. That's a big one that I've kind of been building my profile on. I think it's a really easy way to network and to reach out to new people. And I've kind of been using it since college, so I think it's a platform that's constantly growing. At least for me and individuals that just graduated from law school and are learning to practice law. That's really been my main professional platform. I also like using Facebook for connecting with people kind of on the in between of like my personal and professional colleagues. That's where I tend to have more of those interactions where I've, befriended individuals who maybe started off meeting me in a professional setting. And then Instagram, I would say, I think is my most private, personal app that I've used for just, day-to-day life, communicating with friends and family. And I kind of like keeping those separate. That's been my experience, that Instagram has kind of been out of boundaries when it comes to my professional networking. I haven't used it for that.
And you've been talking about building your brand. Why is it important for a young lawyer who's at a very large law firm but is heavily involved in social media? Why do you want or need to build a brand? Because that's, before you answer, sorry,
That's okay.
10 years ago, certainly 15 years ago, that's a brand new or unknown topic. But so many professionals, whether you're in law or sports or whatever your profession is, people are building their brands. Why is it important to you?
Right. So, I, like we've talked about, am very lucky to have grown up with two attorney parents. I don't take that for granted. I didn't join my parents' practice, but that was a big impactor on me and how I got into law and how I appreciate the law and the career it can offer you and the life it can offer you. And honestly, the power and opportunity that comes with knowing the law and practicing. It's a big responsibility, but it's also a really big opportunity to do good, to reach out into the world and make a difference. I think it's super cool. So I've watched my parents kind of find their way as social media developed and, tech developed and found its way into the law, to kind of meet more people, to build their brand, to expand their outreach. And I watch them not only become, professionally engaged with people, but also on a personal level. Like you're the perfect example. You've become great friends, you better each other's practices, you better each other as people. And you might not have met, likely would not have met, had you not all been engaged on social media and learning to incorporate that with your practice. So for me, I think it's important to build your brand because of the world of opportunity it can open up and the people that you can meet. And, I think especially as a second year lawyer, I know I have so much to learn, not only just on a professional level, on a personal level. I can learn from people who have been practicing longer than me. And I have the opportunity to do that with people all over the world in all different areas of practice. And there's no downside to being open, to, being open to people's viewpoints, being open to people's experiences practicing, learning from that, and building your own practice as a result.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I love that response. It's pure, and it really is. It shows not only are you paying attention, but you're also capitalizing on the opportunities that are there. And guys, I'm talking with AJ Jackson. She's an attorney with Shepherd Mullen in California, Century City. And we are just talking about branding. We're talking about millennials and why it's important to make sure you do the right thing on social media. Now, I have to ask you this question. There's no way I can get around it, but I don't promise. I am sure that when you were either in high school or in college or law school, when people put two and two together, your father's Mitch Jackson? I know him from social media. I gotta find
he
out.
would love that. He would love that you just said that. He would be like, yes, I am Mitch Jackson.
Yeah, he just question. But how do you deal with that, or do you get that very often?
So, I think Mitch and Lisa, especially both my parents, are, they've been practicing a law for quite a while now. I don't want to say that the wrong way, but they're seasoned attorneys, and they've made a name for themselves in the Southern California area and beyond. And honestly, I feel that they're a good example of what it means to, incorporate your professional and personal life in a way that, I can be proud to be their kid. And I've never been in a situation where I'm like, "Ooh, my dad's Mitch Jackson," and I'm sure he would love to hear that. But it's been interesting to see how far their reach is, and who they've encountered in their time practicing. I haven't encountered a ton of that with big law, which has been really great because I've been able to build my own brand, like we've talked about, and build my own practice and forge my own way. But I never take for granted the way my parents have built their practice and the integrity with how they practice, and how that has led me to where I am, and how whoever I meet that knows them, there's a level of respect there, and my parents have earned that, and I'm very grateful and don't take for granted that has played into my experiences practicing and the opportunities I've been presented with.
Yeah, just some of your experiences just from home life growing up. Even though you may not have wanted to pay attention, you were paying attention. It's
Oh
sunk
yeah.
in one way or another. I too am a second generation lawyer. My dad practiced in my hometown for many, many years. When I came through law school, after law school, I had a decision to make. Do I want to go back into his practice in my hometown, or do I want to kind of forge my own path? Well, I didn't want to go back to such a small town. Our town is pretty small in South Alabama. But my then wife, we chose to go to the bigger city in Birmingham, where I am today. And I love my father very much and would have enjoyed practicing with him, I'm sure. But I just wanted to do it my way. I wanted to see what I can do. And I'm sensing that was a little bit of maybe your inspiration. But I want you to share a little bit about that thought process, and how hard was it for you to make that decision? Mom and Dad, I love you, but I'm not coming to your practice right now. I'm going to start doing things, how I can do it. So share with us that journey a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So, back in college, I kind of rebelled against the idea of being a lawyer for the exact reason that I didn't just want to do what my parents were doing. And I was concerned that this mindset I had been in since the age of like 10, that I wanted to, go practice law, was because I had grown up in a house with two very happy, attorneys. My parents love what they do. And I know that can't be said for all attorneys.
Mhm.
So I tried a lot of different things, and professionally, I worked in social media marketing exclusively. I worked in the entertainment industry, interning at places like Viacom, because I've always loved the entertainment industry. And it all just kept looping back to the law. I started taking legal classes in undergrad. I did a constitutional law class that just sold me. And I knew that there was nothing else for me out there. That's the only thing I wanted to do. So I again was lucky to grow up in an environment where I was exposed to the law at a very young age, but I also knew that I needed to do it my own way. And I needed to find my own way, or I wouldn't be happy or fulfilled in what I was doing. So, I didn't take the opportunity for granted that I could come home and practice with my parents, especially when you're going through on-campus interviews and trying to get a job fresh out of law school. I mean, it's a really, really lucky thing to have in the back of your mind that, this is still an opportunity for me, and I have something at home with people I trust that will teach me if that's what I choose to do. That said, I knew very early on in law school that I wanted to practice entertainment litigation, and it's definitely a nuanced area. It tends to be more transactional, as I know you know. So Shepherd Mullen stood out to me because it had this, like I said, business trial practice group where I could dabble in not just, entertainment law, but so many different areas and learn so many different types of expertise. So for me, that was what I had my sights set on when I went into on-campus interviews, when I went into that process. And yeah, I worked really hard and networked, with people that were kind enough to give me the time of day, honestly, to get my position. And my parents were so supportive, and the opportunity has been so rewarding. And as a result, I do feel like I've been able to build my own brand, build my own practice, and do so in a way that is best for me moving forward.
Well, when you passed the bar last year, and you started your job, and then less than 6 months later, the whole world stopped.
Yes.
During that first several months, let's say the last quarter of 2019 coming into 2020, were you able to get into the courtroom? Were you able to attend different either depositions or lawyer meetings and those things, and then things stopped? And then you've got to pick that back up, the in-person coming up. Talk to us a little bit about some of those experiences, because obviously we've never been in these times having to deal with so many changes in the law. And did any of you may not want to answer this, but did any of the senior partners have a harder time adapting to those changes because they've just been doing it their way for so many years?
Sure. So it was definitely weird to go, I think I was in the office for maybe 4 months and then we shut down. And so I had spent the summer prior I studied for the bar the summer prior, and then the summer before that, I had been a summer associate at Shepherd Mullen. Mm-hmm. So I did have a 10-week experience where I worked in the office and I worked with people at my firm. So I was very lucky I had that buffer as well, in addition to those first 4 months practicing as a first year when I came back from taking the bar, and they had chosen to hire me and bring me back on. But it was not nearly enough for, anyone, I think, practicing early on. That it's like, it is a climb, and there is a very steep learning curve to learning to practice law. And switching to online was a real shocker. I remember I had a really busy month back in March and February, and both months. And when we came home, I was scrambling to try to figure out, what is Zoom? Like, I thought I could get away without using Zoom. Like, when they told us, hey, we all need to download Zoom, I was like, it'll be fine. This is going to be 2 weeks. No, I cannot get by without using Zoom. So now, Zoom is my best friend. But I ended up camping out, coming home to OC. Again, very lucky that my parents were down here and that they understand that sort of struggle and that they're attorneys. But it was different. You had to learn to be more direct and be more forthcoming about the things that you just didn't understand as a new lawyer, because there is no room for miscommunications when we're all working virtually. It becomes even more of a responsibility on the young new lawyer to make sure that they are clear when they don't understand something, when they are clear that, we need guidance. And I was very lucky that when I did so, attorneys at my firm were completely understanding. They stepped up, they made the extra time, they mentored like no other. So I'm grateful. I've adapted. I feel like I've learned a lot. And I feel like everyone at the firm can say that, no matter level of seniority, we all had our bumps and our learning curves to overcome. And I've been honestly so impressed, because I think it could be even harder than being, a new lawyer, because you don't have anything to compare to. I don't know. Zoom is my new friend. It's going to be my friend forever now. But to a partner who's been practicing for 30 years, they're probably like, I don't need this. I've already, got my system down. Like you said, I don't want to speak for anyone, but I imagine that was the thought process. And I watched people adapt and be flexible. And it was very, very impressive to me how my firm handled it.
Yeah, you have to. If you don't,
right,
you can't survive.
There was no alternative. Yeah.
Well, AJ, we've been going for a little while. We got a couple more minutes. Got a bunch of folks in here with comments and questions. Let's see. We got Mo Lilienthal. Hey, Morris, obviously up in Huntsville, one of our buddies, and Mitch, of course.
Of course.
Jenny Q in Idaho. Hey, Jenny Q, good to hear from you.
I know all of these names.
Yes, you do. Daniel
all members
Jaffe.
Of Legal Minds.
That's right. Daniel Jaffe has chimed in. Hey, Dan. Ryan Locke over in Atlanta area. Mm-hmm. Let's see, a whole bunch of folks.
You're so popular.
Yes, you are.
I think this is you. No, this is you. I think this is all you.
I can assure you, my friend, they're here not because of me. They see me every Tuesday. Dan has a question for you, AJ. Do you have an intentional social posting plan schedule to build your brand, or is it more posting ad hoc?
Sure. So, honestly, I spent my first year, and I've told my parents this too, because my dad's always on me to build your brand, which I love. I spent my first year adapting and trying to focus on just getting the law down, which of course, whoever has the law down, it takes forever to feel like you know what you're doing. But you learn and you adapt and you practice. But I do not at this point have, a scheduled posting schedule or, a direct plan for building my brand that I have set in stone. Where I do want to go with my brand is, again, like I said before, LinkedIn. I think it's an invaluable resource. And the more I'm on it, the more I see individuals in my generation in all different areas of work utilizing it to do just that, to build their brand. So for me, I think my focus in networking, both with clients and other potential clients and other attorneys, is going to be LinkedIn. And I think I do need to kind of find my niche there and my approach that I think would be best, not just for me individually, but also, via the firm. So that's where I'm going to go with it. And that's the main platform that I want to build my brand on.
You've given us so many great lessons and tips for millennials as well as any other generation when it comes to social media. But I'm going to put you in a hypothetical. You've been asked to go back to, is it Dana Hills or Dana Hills High School?
Dana Hills High School, yes.
There you go. You've
Good
been
times.
asked to speak to the seniors and juniors at Dana Hills. And you're a few years older than them right now, but
just a few,
just a couple. I'm not trying to put your age out there, but let's say that it's this spring and they've asked you to speak about the pitfalls and things to be thinking about when it comes to social media posting. And not to regurgitate all that you've shared with us, but just a couple of tips, couple of things that they really need to be thinking about.
Right. So I think the same mindset that I apply now, I could have applied back in high school if social media had been more prevalent then. If you don't want to sit down and discuss whatever you've posted with a teacher, your teacher in high school, or even with your parents, it's just, you might need to think twice about that post. And I honestly feel so bad for high schoolers today having, their online social presence at the age of 14, 15, 16 be permanent, going into their career 10 years later. I was a goof at, 15. I don't know what I was doing or what I was, out up to. But even now I look back on Facebook and I see a post from, the age of 14, one of my statuses, because they are up there. There's things like, so much homework. I'm so exhausted, like so much going on in the world. And I was like, who was I? What did I have going on that was so devastating that I had this emotional, strange Facebook status? But
AJ, my Snapchat, my account is private. No one can see that except for the people on my account. So I can post anything I want.
No.
What do you say to that?
No. Everything can, I consider anything I post on any platform can be discovered one way or another. And so, like I said, my motto to myself today is if I couldn't sit down with an employer or I couldn't sit down with my parents, couldn't sit down with my grandparents and hash out whatever I've put online, I don't post it. And, I try not to let it totally control and dictate my mindset every time I'm on social media, because I don't think that's healthy or possible. But I mean, it's just a level of decency and respect for yourself to say, you know what, if I can't stand by this to someone important in my life, then, I shouldn't throw it online.
Amen.
So that's what I would tell, young people in high school is just, you have to have some, empathy for being young and for having your independence and making your own choices. But at the end of the day, it's always good to be forward thinking. It's always good to ask, is this me? And is this going to be me down the line? Can I stand by this?
Just like when your parents or any parents make a decision, is my child responsible enough, have enough maturity to now be able to drive a car?
Yep.
I really think it's very analogous with social media these days.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't be responsible enough to have a filter, then maybe you don't need to be on there. But two more questions and I'll get you out of here, AJ.
No problem.
Amy Anderson asks, when working as a lawyer, how do you find your work-life balance that so many millennials prioritize? You've got a lot of responsibilities as a young associate. I know that.
Right. No, definitely. And my first year, I think it's, anyone in legal practice knows that first year practicing can be pretty brutal because everything is new. Law school teaches you the law, but it doesn't teach you how to practice law. And you only learn how to practice law from experience, in my opinion. And My first year, there were times where I did not have much of a work-life balance because I was so consumed in learning to do my job. And again, just kudos to my firm for hiring people that really emphasize that work-life balance. I had mentors pull me aside and say, hey, you need to remember that this is, important. You need to have boundaries when it comes to your profession and your personal life, in the sense that you're only going to be a better attorney if you learn to find balance in your practice. It can't be all consuming. It can't be every moment of every day. So, it's always a learning process. I think now more than ever, I mean, I have a new puppy. So that was like my big life move that has taught me, okay, I have something to care for beyond myself. I can't lose myself in the job for 10 hours, forget to feed the dog, forget to walk the dog, forget to, snuggle the dog. So for me, I promised myself at the end of my first year, that would be like a life move that I would make, that I've wanted for a long time. And again, one of my mentors at my firm said, you can't let any job, including our job, stop you from hitting those life milestones that are important to you, that are outside your profession. And so I'm trying to find that balance. Sometimes it means later nights, sometimes it means earlier mornings, but it's worth it. And I'm happy with the balance that I've been able to develop.
It sounds like you've got some really fine mentors. That's awesome.
I am so lucky. I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, that's a big one for, I think, any young attorney, is especially at big law firms, because there are so many people, it's easy to just go to work and get lost in the mix. That happens. It's inevitable. But we have a dog joining. I have my
you were
my dad
me.
This is Ruby. Very important. Very important she join our conversation.
Well, that's going to be my question to you is, did you negotiate in your contract that Ruby could come to work with you?
It's definitely a possibility. I mean, working from home, she has made many appearances on Zoom, which I think it's important. My partners that I work for, they all know I have this little puppy, and that's pretty cool, that I can feel comfortable enough to say, here's my, my tiny dog mid-call. And it's something that, going back, I will say, when we are back in the office at some point, because I imagine we all will be, I don't know, at the end of the year, just depends on the vaccine, I'm going to miss her. I'm going to have to learn to balance my time with her and my time in the office.
That's right. Last question for you. Jenny Q asked, are you going to start live streaming as part of your social strategy?
Ooh, so live streaming, I think, is so brave. I don't even know if I've ever live streamed on any platform. And I think part of that for me is, like we just talked about, as a new attorney and new to my profession, everything's permanent. So I think it would take some time before I feel comfortable live streaming from my own platform. I've interviewed and it's been live, but everything's permanent and everything that you say matters. So I think until I become more comfortable with my brand and who I am and how I see myself in my profession, that'll be something I hold off on for a while.
Well, I can't let you get out of here. We got to mention Garrett.
Yes, Garrett.
The other sibling. Do you think that Garrett one day will find his way into the law?
I could definitely see Garrett finding his way into the law. He has all the tools to do so. He's brilliantly smart and hardworking. So I could see him finding his way. He's so quick. It is the worst. I mean, he is just brutal when it comes to roasting me for being, the older sibling, the lame, out of touch older sibling. He taught me TikTok.
You're so old.
No.
In his mind, probably.
Exactly. In his mind, I am. But no, he lived with me as my subletter in LA, way back when. And part of college, he just, at an old apartment, he popped in and out. And he talked to me a lot about his professional goals and where he wanted to go. And I could see him ending up in law. The world is kind of endless for him, but it'll be interesting to see where he goes and what he does.
Excellent. Well, AJ, thank you so much for spending some time on Nomberg Law Live with me today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a great experience.
Oh, this has been my pleasure. AJ Jackson forging her own path. Second generation lawyer, but so wise, but yet got so many more years to go. But AJ, thank you again.
Thank you.
I hope that you and Ruby have a great day.
Thank you. And
guys,
likewise, We appreciated getting to talk to you, and like I said, I admire you, and I appreciate you taking the time to give me advice and to bring me on.
Oh, my pleasure, guys. AJ, guys, as we do every Tuesday, interesting conversations with people in their areas of expertise. And we really appreciate AJ spending some time with us today. And as we do every Tuesday, Nomberg Law Live at 10 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Pacific. Hope you guys have a safe and fun rest of your week, and we'll catch you another time. Be well.